friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are, another podcast and another very, very interesting and special guest. The reason I say interesting and special is because every now and again you come across somebody in this business who just inspires you and lights up the room when they walk in. And I had the pleasure of meeting Teresa in Athens, and she decided she'd like to come on the podcast. So Teresa, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Great, brilliant. And I'll just add your position, you're Head of Operations Support and Innovation for Donata in Switzerland.
That's correct, yes.
Now, before I ask any questions or get into too much detail, I was just looking at your profile, and it seems that everything has been mapped out step by step in a logical manner. So you started off with process improvement and quality lead, then performance development, then managing manpower planning and outsource, then business improvement and strategy, and now Head of Operations Support and Innovation. So it's a logical step that gives you all of the tools, I would suggest, to address and attack all of the problems and challenges that we've got at the moment.
Yes, hopefully. And hopefully over the last 11 years of my career with the aviation industry, I've managed to go through quite differentiated areas and get a bit of experience and knowledge about how the industry works. And that will also allow me to proceed with my career further.
Yeah, and I'd endorse that after spending a bit of time with you. You were very knowledgeable. And can I ask you now, and for anybody looking on, especially youngsters who are thinking of getting into this business, I mean, you've had a great career. You've lived abroad. What was it that attracted you to aviation, Teresa?
I think it was aviation itself, and probably for everyone who was ever looking at the sky, seeing the planes, there was a thought behind the head, like how it works, that the planes are flying, like how the whole industry operates. And as soon as I stepped in the industry, I have to say it was love from the first sight. So it was even more interesting, and I was more curious about it every day I spent in my professional careers with the aviation.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And what was it? So that's what interested you and got you in. And then when you were in for a little while, what was it that sort of, made you think, right, I really, really like where I am. I love this industry. This is where I want to spend my career. What was the reason why? What was that trigger point?
Yeah, so I didn't have a single day in my professional life that looked the same as the previous day. And I think that was the most interesting and the most motivating to continue within the aviation. So I had opportunity to work with Emirates Group, with that performance development department, where you look into the details of operations and extremely interesting projects. Then with ground handling, so I really managed to touch majority of the areas within the industry. And as I said, there is not a single day that looks the same, and there is more and more to explore. Yeah,
that's one thing. I mean, it's one of the most interesting, I think, industries, because, like you said, very seldom is everything the same, and there's always something that's there to challenge. What would you have said have been the biggest challenges that you've had in the various positions?
So the know-how and getting the know-how, I think, is one of the biggest challenges for people coming from outside. So my background is in finance and banking. So I have master's in finance and banking. That's nothing to do with aviation. I have the passion for the industry, but I didn't really have the experience. So my worry was that even with the proper education and background, I won't be able to really understand the industry to the level that I should. But yeah, I'm happy that I am where I am. I managed to overcome that challenge. And I think it's also about the working environment. So you also have to be prepared to work in a slightly, let's say, structured, technical, more man-focused environment. But that's not the biggest issues, I would say. As long as you accept it, it's really a great place to be.
Yeah, no, indeed. And touching on that experience level, so everybody, and not just our industry now, but they're all experiencing this, this loss of the silver head or the experience from the workforce, and now you've got so many people necessary to bring in, and in some cases it's a matter of putting bums on seats. So there's an imbalance of experience, and experience helps you with decision making. So how have you in the role, and especially in the role you're in now, how do you balance that now? You know, with the shortfalls on the ground, on the ramp, in the warehouse, etc., because of people coming in, they don't get as much training as we all used to do when we first joined, and you know, it's very difficult for individuals to come in and then see the bigger picture. How do you address that now within your current role, and where do you see that going?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's more important than ever to focus on creating the career opportunities for people, and to show people that they have the future in the industry as well. And that's more important than the salary. Of course, as the industry, we cannot offer as many remote work options as other industries. So that's not working to our advantage at the moment. But having the right culture in place, having the right people around who can guide, who can lead, and also giving people that assurance that there is a future for them in the company and in the industry is making a difference. Yeah,
indeed. And what about the training, Teresa? You know, do you feel that the training needs to be stepped up so that it's more practical focused and less classroom and online, but more, you know, from sort of like care coaches, you know, people who are identified as being the best at what they do and having the passion for what they do, get them to do the training with people on, you know, on the floor, in the real workplace, and you know, make them show what they can do and how they can inspire newcomers in, rather than waiting for trainers or online efforts.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a huge believer in the on-job training, and also having the good example coming from other colleagues, from coaches. So we have implemented that concept here in Switzerland. So we have coaches, we have like the Godfather kind of concept. But I think that it's equally important that the trainings that people get within the company or industry are transferable somewhere else. So it's not only for the job that they are doing at the moment, but those trainings also allow them to grow outside the company, outside the industry, or to stay in the industry, but get to the next levels. So I think there's definitely much more focus required on the quality of trainings that are provided, and also the format of the trainings and usability in the future for our staff.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a couple of good points there about quality and format, and to keep people, make people agile so that they can upskill, cross-skill, new skill, and then it improves their own asset value as individuals, which makes them happier and more secure in their careers, which is so important. Just following on that little subject matter, what about the level of competency and the testing and retention of knowledge? Because, and again, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be too critical or negative about training, but a lot of the training I've found is, if you're there for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, or a week, it's then a memory test at the end of it. It's not about retention of knowledge or competency. It's a memory test. And that, as it's been proven many, many times, is not the validation of whether or not somebody really knows how to do the job and is capable of doing it. Do you think that should also change somewhat, so it gives a little bit more credibility and you know, solid foundation to people who've attended certain training courses?
Yeah, I absolutely believe we should be changing the way we train, and we also expect people to create outcomes of those trainings. But we are very much dependent on the airlines, let's say, or in the industry, on the legislation in general. And we don't have the full freedom to decide on the content and on the format of the trainings, and the expectations from people, and the also acceptance criteria that are defined. So we have to take it into consideration that it won't definitely be a quick change, but there are tools available at the moment that should help us swap the industry towards more modern ways of working. And as long as people are able to find quickly the theoretical data, why shouldn't we allow them to do that? We don't have to expect every single person to know hundreds of pages by heart. So definitely there is a change required. But we also have to be respectful for the legislation and the environment we operate in.
Yeah, no, sure. With carriers and some of their expectations and in some cases exhaustive SLAs, they're not actually helping to make things easier for a ground handler, to be consistent. And I always say, when I was responsible for a lot of carriers, one carrier says, put your hand on your head, another one, finger in your ear, another one, hold your nose, another one, put your hand somewhere else. And the staff have got a very difficult job in working out what to do for each one. And when you've got a decent manual like the ICHM, why not just have industry best standards and follow a set criteria and keep everybody on the same, which allows people then to be a lot more competent, capable, because they've got that level of clarity and understanding. Do you think maybe the carriers should sort of take a step back now and see if they can help simplify things?
Yeah, that would be the ideal word, I think. And but it all starts from the approach, I would say. And we should consider each other as ground handlers and airlines, airports as partners in the whole process. And it should be in our common interest to ensure that the process is the most efficient and the smoothest, and also the employees that are involved in that process are performing the job in the best possible way. So yeah, at the moment we do struggle with some challenges on the local level or on the individual level with the airlines defining very specific expectations. But yeah, I absolutely agree. That should be driven by AHHM. Yeah. No, I think that we should be working towards harmonization, because that can benefit everyone in that process. And that, as I said, that's all about the partnership. And we should approach the problems as partners and try to find the solutions that serve everyone.
No, 100%, Teresa. And joking aside, but the humour. What I found as well is when people are content and when they're confident, and then they feel that competence comes after that, you tend to hear a lot more laughter in the workplace and a lot less stress. Customers can see and feel the different atmosphere. And, I think if you're not able to smile and laugh with your colleagues a couple of times a day, there's something wrong in the environment you're in. And that comes, I think it comes from confidence. But sometimes, and especially I think recently, I haven't seen so much of that, and a lot of indicators are starting to show a little bit amber to red, and some of those are to do with safety issues. So that all obviously stems a lot from pressure, human factors, people not appreciating certain things, being stressed out, lots of different perspectives put on why. But the safety issues are starting to rise. Do you agree with that, or would you say that's a little bit too direct a question?
Yeah, I do agree. And I think we have at the moment very difficult times post-COVID. Also, as you mentioned, some training challenges, but the huge attrition that we face. Also, the sickness levels are enormous at the moment. So we have all those factors creating the potential risks at the operation. Of course, for us, safety is always first, and that's not questionable. But there are situations that you are more or less exposed, and we have to really focus on mitigating that risk. The whole topic of training, of positivity, of creating the right culture, and also having the right environment with people smiling and caring about each other is extremely important.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of that word care. I just think, doesn't matter how long you're on this world, it's not long enough. And we work more than anything else. And if you're not enjoying your time's the most valuable asset any human being has got. You can't package it, you can't borrow it, you can't put it in a box and save it under the bed. Once it's done, it's done. So you need to enjoy it. And the journey that most people go on is one that when you look back on things, you want to say, right, I'm pleased I did that. I made the right choice there. I took a little bit of a chance there and I wanted to learn there. If you can learn every single day, no matter how old you are, then I think you should have a smile on your face anyhow.
Yeah, that's correct. And you asked me earlier about the motivation to join the aviation
Yeah.
industry. And I think that's something that people don't realize, but every single person working in any individual role has an impact on the million of travelers. And
Yep.
it really can create the smile or grumpy face for someone whose bag is lost, for example,
Yep.
or whose bag arrives on time. So I think it's also very, very important to make that clear for our staff and make them aware that their attitude at work and how they perform is influencing the significant number of people, and either working to the fact that they will be good or not so positive.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I've been doing a lot of work recently on change and transformation and care and training. And one of the exercises is when you look at the records performance, whether it's customer complaints, whatever the metrics are that are measured along those lines, and you ask people openly, what would you say is the percentage of quality, safety, all-round business sustainability and customer centricity? You ask them to put a figure out of 100%. The bands and the numbers are shocking. It goes anything from 48% up to the high 70s. And then when you say, right, next time you get on an aircraft and the captain says, ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to the safety announcements. You never know when you might need it. Look where your exit is, etc. Blah, 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 blah. Imagine if the co-pilot then said, oh, ladies and gentlemen, captain forgot to say that of every 100 aircraft that takes off, only 78 will land. People wouldn't stay on the aircraft. And, when you say things like that to people, all of a sudden they realize just because you don't readily associate danger or a major issue with the job you do, people still expect as close to 100% with the right spirit and the right enthusiasm, and to be engaged in doing as best you possibly can.
Yeah, and it's all about awareness and engagement.
Yeah, and I think people now, especially after COVID, so many people are so busy being busy, they're not busy being better. And the better bit comes from involving your people and leading the people and making them see a different journey, a different storyline. And a little bit more time, I think, needs to be spent on those levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's time to look into the future rather than focusing on the past, because that's we cannot change. So let's try to be better going forward.
Yeah, no, very good point. Always respect the past, consider the present, and influence the future. Now, with that, I've got to ask you, if you had a magic wand, what would you do and how would you influence the future?
Oh, that's a very difficult question, but also considering my role at the moment, I would really like to introduce more innovation and change in the industry, because after also 11 years in the industry, I have the impression that nothing or not much has changed, while the world has changed a lot. So if I could magically create the environment where from tomorrow we have amazing digitalized world and more automation in the entire industry, that would be my first area of focus.
Yep, no, I totally agree, and I think it's a legacy trait. When people hear the word digitization, they think of losing jobs or losing authority or losing whatever they do. And it's completely the opposite. It can make things more interesting, more effective, and make you enjoy the job you're doing more. Yeah,
exactly. And instead of spending time on admin and manual work, you can focus on more productive and strategic things. So we have to look at it from that perspective.
And what can I ask you, what's on the innovation menu in Switzerland with you as the chef?
So we are looking at kind of automation, but we have a huge focus on the sustainability and environment. So there's also a lot of innovation coming in that area, electrifying the fleet, introducing or simplifying the processes, and reducing waste. So those are the key areas of focus. And also you mentioned the digitalization, so introducing the software that will help us optimize the resources. And yeah, we are also dealing with quite a lot of legacy systems and solutions. So that's also the area that we have to invest in now and yeah, prepare for the future.
No, very good, very good. And it's also what you touched on there briefly. It's also important now, isn't it, that airports get involved and they start to realise, you know, that they're at the head of their own ecosystem and all of their tenants and everybody that relies on them for infrastructure and an opportunity, especially what you talked there about, you know, electric fleets, etc. You've got to have the power capability, you know, the power surge and the facility. So even if everybody wants to do it and you haven't got the means to do it, it's still not effective, you know. So airports have got a leading role now to play moving forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, can I ask you? We've come to the end of the time. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And like I said, I enjoyed our sessions on the panels when we were in Athens, and thank you very, very much for that as well. Is there anything now that you'd like to see within the next couple of years that if you were able to talk to yourself when you first joined or entered aviation, you'd be able to say, "I told you so"?
I think, yeah, not to get discouraged when you hear no as an answer. So I think that's one thing that I would like to be more consistent in the past on. And yeah, I know that it works, and it's always worth to ask why.
Yes.
Yeah, just yeah, be adventurous and be curious.
Yeah, good on you. And that's what we need. That's what the industry needs for the future. And I'm sure it will be very, very successful with people like yourself in there, Teresa. So thank you very, very much indeed for joining us today. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. It was a pleasure.
And for being so positive, which is also something that everybody needs to focus on these days.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much, Teresa.